So leftists have finally got what they want in some regard to Roe v. Wade. And this was just sort of a personal thing for me, which is just that I saw the debate, and I'm sure you have, about Roe v. Wade and, when should abortion be allowed and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
blah,
we've
blah.
actually been discussing that on the way up, funny enough.
Yeah, but one of the things I found most interesting is some leftists are actually a bit confused deeply in regards to all this, because they've always wanted to be on the side of, we should fight the Supreme Court because they're going to overturn it, and then it happens. And what happens, obviously, is now it's a question for the states and not the Supreme Court. So those of them who are arguing for, well, of course, to be an aspect for the people rather than some random court they don't have interaction with, are now kind of stumped because they still want to be mad leftists. So they're still writing articles being like, actually, this is a terrible idea now, with the same people. So I thought we'd just go through that for a laugh first. So firstly, just to mention on the website, of course, you can go find some of the premium content we have on there. It's this one being the Cultural Revolution, a place of also complete madness. And I suppose we'll start off with Vox being completely confused as to what's going on. So this is an article I saw this morning saying, the case against the Supreme Court of the United States. So, it's a perfectly rational response.
Yeah.
You could say, oh no, there's now a debate of where should we have the limit on abortion? No, just ban the Supreme Court, because I don't like them. They made a decision I don't like. Very, very grown up.
We see this a lot, don't we? If they don't like something, you've just got to get rid of it. It's, you find this one small group of people overriding everyone else, really, isn't there?
But it's just the entire institution has to go. Like you got to burn the whole house down because there's a spider in it.
Yeah.
With that response. Yeah. But they say in here, editor's note, June 25th, the following is an updated version of an essay that originally ran in Vox in May, and we are republishing it with revisions in light of the Supreme Court's decision overruling Roe v. Wade. And this is why I really wanted to go through this for a laugh, because it becomes such a mess, because it's obviously someone panicking and trying to rewrite their arguments, so it makes more sense. And they say in here, the Supreme Court's public approval ratings are in freefall. A Gallup poll taken in June before the court's decision in Dobbs found that only 25% of respondents have a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in the court, a historic low. And that's after nearly a year worth of polls showing that the court's approval is in steady decline. Number one, who cares? They're a court.
Yeah.
They don't have to get re-elected. So I don't think that's going to bother them in the slightest. So I don't know what that point was. To this, I say good. The Dobbs decision is the culmination of a decades-long effort by Republicans to capture the Supreme Court and use it, not just to undercut abortion rights, but also to implement an unpopular agenda they cannot implement through the democratic process. It's that's a really weird historical telling of what happened.
So let me get this straight now. So what they say in the Supreme Court make the decisions, or is it the states?
Well, that's the thing. It's obviously being rewritten to a point where... So the obvious reality for a second is that, it was up to the states, then Roe v. Wade happened, it became, a federal court decision. And now the court has said, actually, that was a stupid decision. Let's go back to the states.
Yeah.
A nice democratic process. But of course, Vox are now variously rewriting their articles to be like, no. Actually, it's something else that was the problem. Because they're saying here as if, the normalization of abortion wasn't via the democratic process, which it wasn't. It was a subversion by the courts. To say that the Republicans are the ones subverting the courts is no. That's what you guys did with the original ruling.
Yeah.
Which is to take it out of the hands of the states and the people who live in them, obviously. So it's now back to them. What's the complaint? Why are you upset? And it's no, you're just terminally upset, aren't you? The kind of people who just screech endlessly, no matter what's going on. He says... And the court's Republican majority hasn't simply handed the Republican Party's substantive policy victories. It is systemically dismantling voter rights protections that make it possible for every voter to have an equal voice. Sure, Jan. I just don't believe it. I clicked on his links and checked out what he was talking about, and he never got to a point in any of those articles, so I'm not going to waste my time trying to go into that. It just seemed pointless. But he goes on, this behavior is consistent with the history of an institution that once blessed slavery and described black people as beings of inferior order. It is consistent with the court's history of union busting, of supporting racial segregation and upholding concentration camps. I hate this. That's the entire retelling of the Supreme Court's history now, is it?
Well, it keeps coming back to that all the time, doesn't it? Everything keeps coming back to... black people and concentration camps, they always try to take us back to a bad time to try and emphasize their point. It doesn't work, does it? It's never in context,
It's not like you're talking to a human being who could say, okay, yeah, the institution did these things and those things, and there's a long history and, the reasons. No, they're just bad.
Yeah.
Every Western institution just has bad.
Yeah.
And therefore, there's nothing good about it. And therefore, presumably, as he says, you must just destroy the whole thing.
But if there's nothing good about it, why do they want the courts to have the ruling?
Only when they agree with them. It's as simple as that, apparently. I never get over how every time you read something like this or have a debate with someone like this, regardless of what political side they're on, you do get to the point where just any Western institution just has to go. Like, that's the root of their argument every time. Just anything to do with the West. Anyway, he goes on. He says, moreover, while the present court is unusually conservative, I don't know what that means, frankly. I presume he means the fact that it's got more Republicans on than usual, but it's been...
Or maybe it's just a bit common sense.
Yeah, but also just the fact that he also goes on to say that the structure itself is conservative. I'm like, duh? Like, that's the whole point of the judiciary, is to review what's going on and say, is this legal?
Yeah, because it's facts. You've got to base it on facts, not opinion.
Is it constitutional? I mean, that's the whole purpose of the thing. They don't come up with, new quote-unquote progress that the left love to call progress. Oh. Instead, they just knock that down, and that's why he's mad. Courts have had a great deal of power to strike down programs created by elected officials, but little ability to build such programs from the ground up. Yes, that's what a court is. It's not a senate or a parliament. Like, it does what it's meant to do, which is knock things down for being illegal, not, make up programs, as he calls it. I love how he doesn't call it, like diktats or something. Thus, when the anti-government political movements control the judiciary, it will likely be able to exploit that control to great effect. Like, good. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm very, keep the government away from me as much as possible.
100%. State intervention is never good, is it?
But it's in almost every aspect. I mean, the only things you can argue where, the government can do good is in policing, if it's done well, obviously, and defense. I mean, those are the ones that pretty much everyone is, it's not arguable. But in every other case, I mean, typically, I would revert to, it's probably a pretty good thing.
To go to the courts, yeah.
To have the courts being anti-government and saying, we don't want anything to do with these people in our lives.
If we didn't have a court system that was slightly anti-government, then there would be no opposition.
I mean, that's, it's one of the...
There is no opposition anyway, but if we didn't have a court system that we could turn to, then we just live in a dictatorship.
Yeah, if the executive and the judiciary were the same body, essentially. So, again...
They'd be governing themselves. There's no checks and balances in place.
The fascistic tendencies of these people being like, I'd like them to just agree with me as well. Otherwise, burn it down. Quote, but when a more left-wing movement controls the courts, it's unlikely to find judicial power to be an effective tool. I was like, what? But that's what whole Roe v. Wade was about, which is the fact that your position on this was able to take control of the courts and therefore change the entire country overnight. It made abortion legal in didn't just make it legal, forced every state to make it legal because it wasn't even up to them in the slightest. So the idea that they can't get power out of that is just lunatic kind of perception on this. But he goes on to say, the court, in other words, simply does not deserve the reverence it still enjoys in much of American society, and especially in the legal profession. For nearly all of its history, it's been a reactionary institution, a political one that serves the interests of the already powerful and at the expense of the vulnerable. I'm like, okay, Marxist, calm down. Just, you're a reactionary. That's a reactionary. It's like, it's
there for a reason.
It's a court. It reacts to things the government does and says it is legal or not. They're just, okay. But then there's just the obvious rhetoric about what about the fact that it's harming those who are the most vulnerable and helping those who are most powerful. Have you seen the news from Microsoft and Google?
No, I haven't. To be honest with you, I don't really watch the news much, and this is the reason why.
But it's hilarious because all these billion-dollar companies, of course, publicly profess, because they live in California and New York and whatnot, they've got to profess with the Democratic Party, so they endlessly talk about, oh no, this is horrible. But also, because it's so horrible, we're going to pay our female employees to go and have abortions if they live in a red state. And you think, why? Oh, because it's more profitable. If she doesn't take time off with the baby,
babies, it's
good business.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe the rich and powerful here, being the billion-dollar companies, are not the ones being harmed by this. They're getting more profit out of it.
Well, this is an industry, and this is what abortion's been used a lot for now. It is a contraceptive measure. It's being it's but easy come, easy go, isn't it? And it is an industry. That is. This is what we need to realise. Like the difference between like the UK and the USA. Because they've got their private healthcare system, we think that we get everything free. When actually we don't, because we pay for it. So they are still getting our money. And these are industries. They're all industries. PPPF, they'd all industries, and they'd all left for money. They're billion-dollar industries at that as well, you know?
If there's no money, there's no point doing it. So.
If it was healthcare, we wouldn't be debating it.
Maybe. But I also love the aspect of, like, so the billion-dollar companies, the rich and powerful, okay, they actually need the abortions because they need the women to stay in work as drones.
Yeah.
So they get better off with a Roe v. Wade being law, which, so no, it's not at the expense of them. Like, this actually harms them. But then it's harming the most vulnerable in society. But you would have thought, I mean, I'm not a huge abortion guy. Like, I don't take the conservative position that at birth it's conception. I obviously don't agree with the, at 9 months, go ahead and kill it either. But somewhere in there I can probably agree to as a concession. But the most vulnerable in this conversation surely are the unborn child.
Yeah, I agree there. But there's, like, this is a split thing, isn't it? You know, it's, like I said, everything is circumstantial. Therefore, there shouldn't be a blanket solution to anything anyway. You know, this shouldn't be a blanket solution. Like, there's a law against this or a law for it. This should be on an individual basis. And the fact that it's not on an individual basis, somebody's behind it, and they're going to get something from it.
Well, even in the most red states, I mean, they obviously made the exemptions for horrific circumstances, such as, if you were raped or blah, 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 blah. That argument is made still, even in those circles. So the idea that people aren't taking this seriously in those regards definitely isn't true. But then you go to the blue states and they're like, yeah, 9 months, go ahead. What? This is like
I did
you're a
hear
lunatic.
that. I didn't know if it was true or not, but I have heard that. That's not good.
There was a bill, I think it was a few years ago now, in the New York State Senate. They brought it forwards, and it would have legalized it up till 9 months. And the lawyer who had written the bill realized that whilst being questioned and was like, oh, fuck, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Like, she looked like a right tit. And she was like, oh, crap. Anyway, but whole other story. Anyway, he goes on to end off here saying, and it currently appears to be reverting back to the historical mean, the Supreme Court, by, doing its job and reacting to the law. How dare they? Whereas it doesn't help the revolutionary future, presumably. If Alito truly wants to put the question of whether pregnant individuals have the right to terminate that pregnancy up to free and fair democratic processes, polling indicates that liberals can probably win that fight on a national level. Okay, then. I mean, again, this is why I don't get this whining. It's like, don't you know we'll win anyway? Then do it.
Yeah.
Just pass the laws. You don't have to subvert the court and get Roe v. Wade passed, based on a lie as well. He goes on to say that he interviewed some person from an opinion polling station and said, in all the work I've done, qualitative focus groups, in-depth interviews, surveys, the bottom line is the public wants people to be making these decisions around abortion, not the government. But there you are. You've got it. I mean, this is what I found amazing, because this article was published before the change. And they're like, oh, yeah, shouldn't it be up to the people? And then, the Republicans...
Now it's up to the people. They complain about it.
How dare they? This is wrong. And it's like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, you are clearly just utterly confused, or someone who's just looking to be mad. Otherwise, you're not taking this seriously. But public opinion may not matter much in the coming political fight over abortion, he writes, because Alito and his fellow Republican justices have spent the last decade placing a thumb on the scales of democracy. Alito authorized 2 opinions and joined a third that, when combined, almost completely neutralize the Voting Rights Act. Yes, black people can't vote in America anymore. Don't know if you heard.
No, I didn't hear that.
No, just a new thing, apparently. It's not true.
Are they?
It's obviously just made, it's just like, yeah, it just gets rid of the Voting Rights Act that allows black people to vote. It's like, no, it doesn't. What are you talking about? Like, this has not happened. You just made that up. One of the most troubling aspects of the court's jurisprudence is that it often seems to apply one set of rules to Democrats and a different, more permissive set of rules to Republicans. Last February, for example, Alito voted with 4 of his fellow Republicans to reiterate the Alabama congressional map that the lower court determined to be unconstitutional racial gerrymandering. You know this idea? I'm sure you've heard it, where it's like the American left don't engage in gerrymandering. The American right always. That's how they fix things.
Yeah.
You hear it constantly. I don't know why I have to keep bringing this up. Can we take a look at the next link here? This is a congressional map for New York. Can you see the hollowed out bit in the middle there? With the ghost parts that cross, 2 islands down one side of one of the islands and then across, the boat walk back into a different district. Pretty gerrymandered, you would have thought. This is New York, so of course it's Democrats. This is a Jerry Antifa doesn't exist Nadler's constituency. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He became famous basically for just going out and saying that Antifa don't exist.
Oh, right.
During the Summer of Love, when they were petrol bombing everything.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Okay, mate. But if we go back to the whining, because they're still whining, he goes on and says, I could list more examples of how the court, blah, 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 is bad, in so many words. And then he goes off to say that on areas of religion, vaccination, and the rights of workers to organize, I checked out the links. The first one is the court stopped Cuomo from limiting churches from their occupancy levels. So, okay, defending religious rights. Seems like a good thing. They also stopped Biden mandating most workers having to get vaccinated or routinely tested constantly. Like, okay.
That's
That seems like a good thing that they stopped.
Yeah. My body, my choice.
Yes,
yeah?
it's
That's
kind
what
of
they shouted, yeah.
Surely that's what this was all about. Bodily autonomy? No? It doesn't ring any bells. Don't worry about it. And the last one is that they defended in employer property rights so that unions couldn't come on their property regularly just to promote. They were like, no, this is still my land. Like, you can promote your union elsewhere, but just not on the site. Again, like, okay, defending property rights, defending religious rights, and my body, my choice by the court there. None of those are bad.
No.
All of those seem good to me.
They think they are.
Yeah. So they then go on to say that the whole institution is designed to stop government overreach. And I was like, yes, that's a good thing. Idiots. Yeah, I don't know why we're having this debate, but this is what I mean by just the panic that's set in after the change, at least in this aspect of trying to change everything. But if we go to the next one here, there's also other articles that they're finding in. There should be another link in there, but don't worry about it. It's just the fact that they're like, don't you know this is not about abortion? It could be about other things as well. And so Vox go on to list a bunch of things. But the funniest I've seen, I don't know if you have, some people have said that interracial marriage might become illegal because of this.
Really?
No. It's not going to happen. But it's just, if we let this fall, don't you know everything else will fall?
Yeah,
like,
of course it will.
No, it won't. Like, there are fundamental differences between, like, a gay marriage and abortion. I mean, in one of them, people die.
Yeah.
The babies die. That's the argument from the conservatives. But the funniest one being the interracial marriage will become illegal because it's obviously just nuts, them living on another planet.
That is just insane. That is...
Trust me, it'll happen, bro.
This is how people can't take these subjects serious, because you've got people saying such insane, radical stuff, and then you can't have a proper debate on these issues because you've got something saying something radical and crazy over this side, and the people on this side are not going to listen. They're not going to listen. So they switch off, and then these things happen to go through then because the people who switched off have let these ones carry on.
Yeah, and in that example, it's just the most extreme. I saw another one which was funny. They tried to argue that slavery will return because of this, which...
I think slavery's already here. Slavery's already here. It's just been posh, made to look posh.
Oh, what do you mean?
We're all slaves, aren't we, to the system, But people don't realise that.
They certainly think of it.
We're all slaves in our own way, But that's another story for another day, I suppose.
Okay, look forward to that one. But this is also just, for anyone who doesn't know, all based on a lie as well. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but you remember, it's Roe v. Wade. This is Roe, this lady here.
Right.
And she got pregnant, wanted an abortion, went to the cops, and I couldn't find a link in here, but in the Wikipedia page it says that she said that she was raped by black men. She didn't want any of them prosecuted, which, is normal. A rape victim. And then she got picked up by the law firm to go to the Supreme Court and argue, look, I'm a woman who's been raped and I can't get an abortion. How terrible is this? Later in her life, she admitted all of it was a lie. 100%. She was never raped. There were no black men doing it. She just got pregnant.
But just, yeah. And it's just, what it is, you need a victim. You need to victimize and demonize. And that's what's going on here. She needed to be the victim to demonize the law.
Yes, and they used her. I mean, even herself said that she spent the rest of her life actually campaigning against Roe v. Wade as Roe to overturn the thing. And unfortunately, she died in 2017, so she didn't get to see, the badness that she saw it undone, that she did. But it is just interesting that always gets dropped from the conversation. It's just never happened. And the last thing just to mention here, which is just a map about the whole thing as well. So you can load up. Should be a map you can load up, John. Which is just the fact that the idea that this is now, abortion is just illegal in the United States. Have you heard? It's just not true. Like, just demonstrably not true. I mean, you can still get abortions in the United States. I mean, there's a map there of just where abortion rights are still a thing, where they're not, where it'll be changed. And it's not even that big a change. I mean, this isn't like the whole country overnight flipping.
Yeah, that's pretty even, I'd say.
But also, where are the people who are most adamant that you should be able to have an abortion whenever you want? Well, they're in New York and LA, which are fine. So I saw a tweet about this, just someone saying, if there are any riots about this, It will be Democrats burning down Democrat cities where abortion is still legal.
Yeah.
She'll just be hilarious. But anyway, that's just my... I wanted to go through that because I just found it unbelievable. The frantic, quick change the narrative by the leftists here. But otherwise, we'll end that there.
Thanks for watching that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters. If you enjoyed that, you can sign up and become a member on our website and access our premium content. Like my most recent article, Libertarians Should Not Trust Big Business. If you want to find me on social media, you can find me on Getter at Harry Lotus Eater. Thank you and goodbye.